boom, baby!
Oh, good. Nothing.
This is the original version of The Emperor's New Groove.
Oh wow, is that like a tattoo?
And although it has small traces of the final version,
Hey, don't touch.
Whoa, no touchy!
it was a disaster. After 6 years of rewrites,
So much of the movie isn't working.
burnouts,
Part of me just wants to give up and say, forget it.
and firings,
I was up half the night just sort of grieving over this whole thing.
how do you start a movie over from scratch
Oh yeah, it's all coming together.
and make an all-time classic
Bring it on.
in a third of the time?
How did we, Kronk?
Well, you got me. By all accounts, it doesn't make sense.
It's been declared Disney's best yet, and a triumph. Now, the most acclaimed film of the year.
Following the massive success of The Lion King, Disney decided that they needed another musical epic to follow it up. So, they brought in The Lion King's co-director, Roger Allers.
After Lion King, I was told, how about developing a story about South American culture? I looked at them and I said, oh, the Incas. So I gathered a crew to do the picture inspired by a setting like Machu Picchu. The mythic aspect of the Inca culture is important to me. I'd love to get something of the essence that does have to do with their gods and the sun. A story about Pacha, a llama herder. He loves the sun. He believes there's always a way to bring light into any situation. There's Manco, the arrogant, self-centered prince, and Pacha comes to the city, and when he's put into a position of leadership, he transforms the city. It's about a common man teaching an arrogant man how to rule. When I pitched the original story that I'd cooked up to Michael Eisner, he said it has all the elements of a classic Disney film.
Disney gave it the green light and called it Kingdom of the Sun.
Kingdom of the Sun was this really cool, epic Disney musical. It was epic. It was big, lots of elements.
It wasn't comedy focused. It wasn't that type of film. It was big drama, big spectacle. It's like a Beauty and the Beast or a Mermaid or that type of thing.
The studio really opened up and said, we don't want to keep making the same sort of film, and have given really the people in the studio a lot of artistic license to different sorts of stories.
But with that artistic license came lots of complications. The first of which was the plot.
We're grappling with at the moment is that we have a lot of elements in this story.
Much like Emperor's New Groove, Kingdom of the Sun had an arrogant emperor, a humble llama herder, and an evil sorceress, but a ton of plot differences. For example, in Kingdom of the Sun, Yzma's big evil scheme involved blocking out the sun by summoning the god of death, not just turning Kuzco into a llama. And the plot wasn't the only difficulty.
It's a complicated movie because all the departments are working simultaneously.
The production crew took a research trip to Peru to study the Inca architecture and landscape, and while seemingly beneficial, it only added to the story's growing complexity.
One of my biggest faults was to try to pull all these different elements in, the mysticism, the funny villain, all of this, trying to make all these things into a rich soup or whatever, and maybe I tried to hold on to too many ingredients.
It's very hard for one guy to be able to give all the answers he has to. The day isn't long enough.
When the movie's narrative became too unruly, the team decided to unify it around its initial inspiration, The Prince and the Pauper, a novel about two identical-looking boys, one rich, one poor, who switch lives.
I bet we're distant cousins because we look exactly alike.
Pacha talks his way out of being killed by saying, let's switch places because we look exactly alike. And of course, everything goes wrong from there, but they switch places just like the Prince and the Pauper do.
But even with the refocusing, the film would only become more ambitious. And they still had to figure out the casting.
I talked to Roger, and he wanted me to do the comedy sidekick character called the Walk. It's a little stone figure, and at the time I came on, Gary Marshall was the voice.
Gambling. That's why people come here. That's to gamble.
As they continued through it, they realized, okay, we just don't like this. It's not working for us. It needs to be different. So they started to look into different voice talents and things like that. We went through a bunch. We went through Peter Ustinov.
Same faces, same noses, all green.
Nobody liked that, so that was out. And then they settled on Harvey Fierstein.
Honey, I'm so happy.
And that's the one we were working on.
Why didn't I think of that? You know what? I will just walk out there and I'll tell those 50,000 people, now you come back tomorrow.
For reasons we'll discuss a little later, the character was scrapped and Fierstein was out. As for the main cast, Disney locked in 3 big names. David Spade.
I can't believe I've been here this long and no one's kissed my feet.
Eartha Kitt.
The prince? I told you. He's dead.
And the biggest name that didn't make it into the final film, Owen Wilson.
Oh, I've got one of those too, but mine sort of looks like a moon. See right there?
In addition to Eartha Kitt, the most important thing that survived till the final version was David Spade. And not just his voice.
Kuzco is similar to me. He's kind of a brat. There you go.
Yeah, could you write something funny?
Sure, there's something funny.
Yeah, that's very clever.
Jay Leno makes a smiley face. Find him. No! You threw off my groove.
I'm sorry, but you've thrown off the Emperor's groove.
They also film me when I record, so they get a lot of my Elvis moves when I talk.
What I love about Yzma is that she's a classic Disney villain, big scale villain, and she's operatic, she's over the top.
Eartha Kitt brought such an eccentric quality to that character. She said, that she loves to play that sort of wild diva role.
I adore her because she goes after what she wants.
While the casting was crucial to the film's identity, like any Disney movie, so was the music.
In 1997, I was approached by the Walt Disney Company to write songs for an animated feature called The Kingdom of the Sun. I was deeply flattered, Disney films have been in my life since I saw Sleeping Beauty.
Since the story was all over the place, Sting was hesitant to commit to the film, which was far more warranted than any hesitancy to hit that subscribe button.
My only concern ever about Sting had been, is he too sophisticated? His music is very complex, and would it be able to integrate well into an animated story?
They hadn't really settled on a script. I was writing songs in the dark, really, based on sort of hearsay of what the film was going to be. There was no hard script.
He eventually agreed to participate, but only on the condition that his wife, Trudy Taylor, could tag along and film a documentary about the film's production.
Hi, I'm Trudy.
I'll play the guitar, you do what you do.
Clearly, she didn't realize the tumultuousness that she'd be capturing.
You just be a tinsy-winsy little bit more obnoxious and on camera.
And everything would come to a head when executives finally saw a screening of the film.
Screening the movies like this is having someone chop your hands off and pull your pants down in front of a crowd, and you stand there with stumps bleeding, incapable of pulling your pants back up.
Upstairs in this meeting right now, and it's going to determine the fate of our whole project.
For me, so much of the movie isn't working. I just don't know who I'm supposed to care about, what I'm watching. The pace seems really, really wacky, like just so leaden, and I'm not having much fun.
Multiple reworks were attempted by the team, but they just weren't enough to salvage the movie, especially since it was already so far along in production.
If none of the outlines strike Peter as brilliant, then they might completely show the project.
Instead, the producers made an unusual decision. They split the production into 2 teams, one led by Allers, which focused on the movie's original story, and another led by co-director Mark Dindal, which worked on a comedic version of the film. By this point, Allers had been struggling on the project for 4 years.
I sort of feel like I'm standing here with like fragments of like confetti falling through my fingers. I was up half the night just sort of grieving this whole thing,
He was ultimately removed from the project. With the film's original architect gone, the plot was uncertain, and so was the music.
Now I hear that they want to change the script, so it makes all the the characters and the plot and everything. The songs have been written around moves.
Constant rewrites made it difficult for Sting to capture the film's emotional tone. And despite repeated objections, executives didn't listen.
Filmmakers want everything short and punchy, but songs have to have a certain amount of time to breathe, and they have to have their structure intact. This organization seems to want to take the best of different cultures, suck them up, and then spit them out into something that's sort of like a hamburger. It's really not what I want to do. I don't think that's what they want to do, really.
Sting eventually had enough and gave Disney an ultimatum, writing a letter essentially threatening to quit if the story didn't stay true to its original message.
Gentlemen, when you've achieved genuine human values, you don't need a theme park or a water slide. I've been aware for a while now that my vision of the world and Disney's may be at odds. I can only be candid, but there's something intrinsically faulty with this film, and I find it very difficult to continue working on something that goes against my beliefs. I offer my views humbly, and I look forward to your response.
I read it, I went, oh, this is a really good note.
The thought occurs.
Ironically, Sting was arguing against the new direction, which would culminate in an all-time classic, but not before it was dead.
Upper management had problems, so they shut down the picture. They just shut it down.
Disney executives had enough.
She's going down.
The movie was halted for 6 months. Ultimately, the studio couldn't afford to have sunk so much money into a project just to throw it out entirely, so they demanded a full rebuild. Most of Sting's music was cut, and a new plot was demanded, this time under even higher pressure.
Deadlines start to get real, the release date's coming at you like a brick wall. Everybody's killing themselves now to get it done.
It's like, how long is this going to take? And I'm thinking, I'm here 72 hours a week, buddy, drawing this stuff. You come in for 3 hours and you're complaining. Give me a break.
There's sort of a molding, shaping stages. Our story guy sort of came up with another idea.
That the story ought to be simple enough to really have time to get to know the characters and their personalities, and that's where the humor will evolve from. And
just do a blue sky thing. Just try something crazy just off the top of your heads. So they came up with an entirely different storyline, except that it involves a prince who becomes a llama.
What was originally conceived as a period piece epic turned into a buddy road trip comedy.
I would say it was probably one of the most drastic pivots in Disney animated film history.
Several things have happened. We changed the name of our film from Kingdom of the Sun to Kingdom in the Sun. We also have a year and a half now to do the film, so it's not a time for faint hearts.
Where animation technology stood in the 90s, that was not a lot of time. And although you can only hand draw 2D animation so fast, the writing team was pushed to make up that time.
I wrote the whole scene, that whole dinner party scene, in 15 minutes.
Hey, did you see that sky today? Talk about blue.
Peter Schneider, the head of the studio, just bursts out laughing, and everybody laughed. And then at the end of it, Tom Schumacher just turned to me and goes, "Well, Dave, looks like you saved your character."
The comedic direction was now validated, but the rest of the plot still needed to be reworked.
I heard that Manco was going to be the main character of the movie, that Pacha was out of the movie, that they changed the setting of the movie from Peru to Nebraska, and they were all going to be sheep instead of llamas.
The original plot followed Manco and Pacha as they live the other's life and work to defeat Yzma, who threatens to block out the sun to prevent herself from aging. Not only was the story thrown out, but so was the idea for one of the characters.
We have a new Pacha. The old Pacha was 16 years old. This one's now 45. He's big. He's a big farmer with big hands.
There are sort of like two storylines going on at one time, which is the Pacha Kuzco storyline. Then there's a sort of like a B storyline, which is Yzma and Kronk, the villains.
The biggest difference in the Kingdom in the Sun version from the Emperor's New Groove version was that in the second act, Kuzco stayed in Pacha's village. They didn't go on the road back to the palace. It wasn't a road movie yet. So instead it was like an episode of, the Andy Griffith Show or The Office or something, where you just meet these bunch of weird, eccentric characters.
Since Pacha was 45 instead of 16, Owen Wilson was no longer a fit, so he was fired, and a much warmer, mature voice was brought in.
John Goodman brought such a warmth to the Pacha character.
Pacha is just a big, virile, good-looking, dependable family man. It's unlike any other feature I've ever seen before. It's so different and so good.
Dad, I ate a bug today.
Oh, was Mom baking again? Don't tell her I said that.
But the one character that, to me, takes the film beyond hilarity is Kronk.
Real wearing pants, plate of hot air, basket of grandma's breakfast, and changed the bull to a gill. Got it.
If you're thinking, where have I heard this voice? Well, you might be hearing this.
Is it weird that we're in a group text with our friend's wife, but not our friend?
Or this character from Ted, who's actually a lot like the dim-witted Kronk.
My longest relationship was like 6 months, and then she farted in her sleep. I'm like, I'm out of here, man.
We have this beefcake character named Kronk. He's basically Yzma's boyfriend.
Take him out of town and finish the job now!
What about dinner?
At first I started playing him off as a sort of vain character, and I think he's just more of a lovable type of hunky character.
Kronk replaced Huaca, the scrapped character mentioned earlier, as Yzma's stooge. Fun fact, Huaca's design can be seen in this scene here as an Easter egg.
You know, instead of making him dark like that, I thought, you know, maybe he likes to cook some spinach puffs. Be a shame we're gonna miss dinner. That's where he came from, you know, down here, you know, as opposed to up here.
All the elements of the film were coming into place, and even when the plot didn't make sense, they stole an old trick from Monty Python.
When suddenly, the animator suffered a fatal heart attack. The cartoon peril was no more.
And wrote the plot imperfection into the film.
How did you get back here before us?
Hey, you got me. By all accounts, it doesn't make sense.
While the original version of the movie failed despite constant care, effort, and poring over every detail, there's an opposing philosophy that, when life gets hard, care less about it.
This movie, there was no script, which is really rare today. We would just come to work and go, okay, so what's the next scene?
There's something to be said about taking a carefree approach to one's endeavors, especially creative ones. If you're not so hung up on the result, you just might get the best possible one. I'm Adam. This is ScreenPuff. If you liked this, check out this next video. And as always, thank you for watching.